What's up, fight fans? Thank you as always for passing by. All right, I actually wasn't going to do a video on David Price. I was going to do a video initially because in the lead up to this, there was talks about him fighting the likes of Carlos Takam or a rematch with Sergey Kuzmin, obviously the guy he fought on the undercard of Povetkin versus Joshua. So I thought those fights almost deserved a video, right? Because I almost felt like they were car crashes waiting to happen. But to be fair to David Price, and I don't know who his manager is, and Eddie Hearn, I thought yesterday was a lot more realistic, right? I thought an 8-rounder was a lot more realistic. I thought his opponent in Tom Little was a lot more realistic. And I thought where he was on the undercard was a lot more realistic as well. Let's not forget, for the last 2 pay-per-view cards he was on, he was pretty high up. Maybe because of the opponent in terms of it being a lot better. Sergey Kuzmin and Povetkin, let's be honest, are a lot better than Tom Little. But I thought yesterday was a lot more realistic. And that's why I wanted to talk about. I've done videos saying that David Price should retire. I said like David Price is almost a car crash waiting to happen, and we don't want to see it in boxing. I've always said that boxing's dangerous enough, right? And if a guy is going to go in there and he's going to be hurt like the way he's been hurt recently, then he should call it quits. But if there can be a sense of realism as to where they are, then I don't have a problem with it as much, right? I think when David Price versus Tom Little was initially announced, I was like, what the fuck is this? But in hindsight, I think it was a good fight for him. I think it actually was a good fight for him. And I'm not going to say that's where he is, because I think he's a level above Tom Little, and I think in the end he kind of proved that, even though I think the stoppage was bollocks. But I think he's below world level. I even think he's below European level. So I think it was good to see him fight someone that is fringe British level, just to see where he is. I think David Price needs to know himself where he is. And I think he now knows he's above that. And I think we can start almost, if he wants to, it's almost a case of building blocks from there. I think the problem I've had with David Price, and not just David Price, but Eddie Hearn and some of David Price fans, is that it's always been a case of he's a big puncher, so we can put him in with anyone and he's got a puncher's chance. And I feel like that's just so much bollocks. And I think it's dangerous, not just for David Price, but for anyone. It's just a stupid ideology that because you've got a big punch, you can go in there against the world's best. And I think that if we're going to start from where he's starting now, I'm more happy with it, right? I am way more happy with it. And you know what I'm more happy with as well? And I'm going to talk about the performance because it wasn't great, but we'll talk about that. But I'm more happy about what he said ringside. I was waiting for David Price to say something silly, such as I'm 1 fight away from the top guys in the division. But he called out a guy that I think is realistic, Lucas Browne. He called out a guy that I think is realistic. And I feel like David Price has sat down with his team and they've just had an honest conversation about where they are and where they need to go. And look, it's about making money. And if I can fight someone like a Lucas Browne that I think David Price can beat and earn 6 figures, it's a lot better than going in there against these unbeaten Russian kids like Sergey Kuzmin. I think they really have come to a good place. And I think Lucas Browne is a good matchup. Again, if we're starting to do building blocks, Lucas Browne's a good matchup. And there are loads of these matchups around the world. Guys that are fun fights, will make money, but aren't as dangerous. And I think David Price needs to take those kind of fights. Forget the guys in the top 15 or top 20. Have these fun fights that aren't that dangerous, guys that I think you can win and the crowd think you can win, rather than going in there against guys that are either top 10 or guys that no one knows that are killers. It's just smart matchmaking, I think, from here on is what's going to get David Price what he wants. And that isn't titles, not at 35. He don't want titles. Yes, it'll be good to win a title, but it's about making money. And I think if he can fight guys like this, and again, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but guys like Lucas Browne, and beat Lucas Browne, then again, you can move on. For the performance, it wasn't great. I don't think he let his right hand go. You know what it is? For someone that clearly has power in that right hand, he takes way too long to let that right hand go. I don't know what it is. Again, he's very tentative. It could just be a case of he hasn't won a fight in a while, and he hasn't won a fight in a while, so I think he's scared to throw it because he knows when he throws it, it gets countered. That happened against Povetkin and Kuzmin. Obviously, Tom Little's way below that level, but regardless, he can get countered, and Tom Little did counter him a few times. But when he throws it, there clearly is power. So he knows he's got that in his arsenal. I think he's got a good left hook as well. He threw that a couple of times. But more importantly for me was his conditioning. He came in light. He looked light on his feet. I think that's the lightest he's been for 2 or 3 years. And I think, look, that's all I ask for boxers. Come in condition, right? Again, ability is one thing. Just come in shape. And David Price did that. He came in shape. He'll be happy about that performance. It wasn't great, but again, it's just about getting the win for David Price from now on. And I think, again, a fight against Lucas Browne is more realistic. It's a fan-friendly fight. Eddie Hearn will probably, knowing Eddie Hearn, will probably chuck it on the undercard of whoever Joshua fights in April, he'll probably do that. If not, there's a chance that maybe, I don't know what fight cards are coming up, but he could probably chuck it on a fight card before that. That wasn't much of a workout for David Price, so I think he can get back in the ring, I don't know, March maybe? In rounding up, look, I've openly called for David Price to call it quits. I think a number of you have as well. But if he's going to fight this type of opponent, then I'm happy for him to kind of hang in there for a couple more years. I am. If it's going to be a case of the Lucas Browns or Tom Littles, that kind of level, then look, I'm happy for him to put food on his family's table. That's just how it is, right? I mean, what else is he going to do in his career? I'm happy for him to earn some money. I just don't want to see him get hurt. That's just because I think he's a nice guy. I think he's actually one of the nice guys in boxing. I don't want to see him get hurt, but if he can fight the Tom Littles, the Lucas Browns, and that kind of level, guys in and around the top 50 to 30, then why not?